Hey guys, welcome back to the Actiri Magic channel. I'm Steve, the Actiri. Today we're going to be talking about elementals in Modern and how they're played, and today we're going to teach you how to play this deck. Alright, so I recently saw online that we have two different elementals builds, and we have a Brady Huff and we also have a kanister. These both did really well. One took a 5-0 and the other one took a 6-1 to the White Knights game room at Modern 2K. So let's just get into it. I'm going to specifically talk about the Brady Huff because it had a better finish of 6-1 and it took second place. And let's talk about it. Let's get into it. So first off, elementals, if you're not familiar, have done really well here in Modern, and they're all playing this card called Kahira the Orphan Guard. Now, if you're not familiar with Kahira the Orphan Guard in the champion companion mechanic, it's a mechanic that allows you to play Kahira from outside of the game and put her into your hand. So Kahira the Orphan Guard is a 3-drop hybrid green-white, and generic companion. Each creature card in your starting deck is a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast card. If you show up with Lurgoyf, this is no longer a valid companion or a human or anything like that. Anyway, she says she has vigilance. She's a 3/2. Each other creature you control that's a cat, elemental, nightmare, dinosaur, or beast gets +1/1 and has vigilance. Now this is going to buff our board, but it also gives us another threat whenever we run out of threats. So that's why Kahira is in here. All right, next up, let's talk about all of the cool main board creatures. We got 31 creatures, very creature dense, and let's talk about them. First up, we've got Thunderkin Harbinger. This is a 1-drop 1/1. Whenever it enters battlefield, you may search your library for an elemental card, reveal it, and then shuffle your library and put that card on top of it. So what's really great is we have a couple singletons in our library, singleton elementals in our library that we can go and find with this card in case we need to fix what we're doing. We have one Omnath Locus of the Royal, and we have one Smoke Braid and one Incandescent Soul Stoke. Now, this means that we kind of get a toolbox feel with the Elementals deck because of Thunderkin Harbinger being able to get so much out of our deck and put it into our hand. Or not put it in our hand, put it on top of our library. Let's talk about Smoke Braider. Smoke Braider is a 2-drop, 1 red, 1 generic, 1/1. Tap, add 2 mana of any combination of colors to your mana pool. Spend this mana only to cast elemental spells or activate elemental abilities. This is really powerful. Being able to tap for 2 mana out of 1 creature is really good, but we're only going to run 1 of it, and that's because having it in multiples is just not very good for us. Next up, we have Thunderkin Awakener. This gives our deck some resilience to creature removal and is really great for Lightning Skelemental itself. We'll talk about that in a minute. It's a 2-drop, 1 red, 1 generic, 1/2 haste. Whenever Thunderkin Awakener attacks, choose target elemental creature card in your graveyard with toughness less than Thunderkin Awakener's toughness. Return that card to the battlefield tapped and attacking. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. Really powerful card, really quick, gets back our threats, and we're going to run 4 copies. Untitled Mariner is going to give our creatures some defense, some protection. It's a 1 blue, 1 white changeling 2/2, so it has every creature type, so it counts as our dog, our cat, our goat, our elemental. And it says whenever you or a permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or ability an opponent controls, counter that spell or ability unless its controller pays 1. This is really great against creature removal, but it's also really good against Thoughtseize and Inquisition. Also really good against Storm, because they can't just storm off and then shoot everything to death, because they're going to have to pay 1 extra mana every time they target something. Very cool. Next up, we have Incandescence Soul Stoke. This is a 3-drop 2/2. Other elemental creatures you control get +1/1. So it's a Lord, which is good. Red generic tap. You may put an elemental creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. That creature gains haste until end of turn. Sacrifice it at the beginning of the next end step. This is really good for our big elementals, and we're going to get to them here in a second. And also really good to just kind of close out the game in kind of an explosive way. So next up, we have Lightning Skelemental. If you're not familiar with this thing is so powerful. If you've never been hit with this, it's just, it's absurd. So it's a 2 red, 1 black, 6/1 trample haste. Whenever Lightning Skelemental deals combat damage to a player, that player discards 2 cards. Beginning of your end step, sacrifice Lightning Skelemental. This is a ball lightning with more upside. It's just good. And with Thunderkin Awakener, because it's only got the Lightning Skelemental's only got 1 toughness, Thunderkin Awakener will reanimate Lightning Skelemental and smack them in the face again for 6. And so because Lightning Skelemental is always going to go to our graveyard, Thunderkin Awakener can reanimate this thing over and over again. And if they don't have an answer, they're just dead. Next up on our list is Risen Reef. This is our value engine. It's a 1 blue, 1 green, generic 1/1. When Risen Reef or another elemental enters the battlefield under your control, look at the top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it onto the battlefield tapped. If you don't put that card on the battlefield, put it in your hand. So it's either going to draw a card, kind of, or it's going to just put a land into play, which is where we want the land to go anyway. So it's just nothing but upside. It's super good with Thunderkin Awakener, putting elementals from our graveyard back into play. So that's going to trigger Risen Reef. So good. Next up, we have Omnath, Locus of Creation. This is really, really cool because it does so much. Whenever Omnath, it's a 1 of each color but black. 1 blue, 1 white, 1 green, 1 red. 4/4. When Omnath, Locus of Creation enters the battlefield, draw a card. So we're going to get a 4/4 and draw a card. Landfall. When a land enters the battlefield under your control, you gain 4 life. If this is the first time this ability has resolved this turn. If it's the second time, add 1 of red, blue, green, white. If it's the third time, Omnath deals 4 damage to each opponent and each planeswalker you don't control. So it's going to shoot our opponents in the face. So if we play Omnath, then we play a fetch land, we're going to gain 4. We're going to gain 4 life. If we crack the fetch land, go get another land from our library, we're going to get 4 mana. Then if we happen to have a Risen Reef trigger in there somewhere, and we get another land drop off the Risen Reef, then we're going to shoot all of our opponents for 4. It's not likely to happen that we're going to get that third ability, but it's on there. It's going to happen occasionally. It's good. Next up, we have Omnath, Locus of the Royal. When Omnath, Locus of the Royal enters the battlefield, it deals damage to any target equal to the number of elementals you control. This is just a go bang right in the face. It's a red, a blue, a green, and a generic 3/3. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, put a 1/1 counter on target elemental you control. If you control 8 or more lands, draw a card. Wow, just good. So it doesn't have to be a specific elemental that gets the 1/1 counter. It can be any of your elementals, and that's just good. Next up, we have got the new hotness from Modern Horizons 2. We've got 2 elementals that trigger our Risen Reefs. That can be trigger our Risen Reefs. They also can be found with Flamekin Harbinger if we need to go find our answers. First one up is Fury. Fury is if you're not familiar, Fury is a 5-drop, 3/3 double strike. Okay. Whenever Fury enters the battlefield, it deals 4 damage divided as you choose among any number of target creatures and or planeswalkers. You can evoke this, exile a red card from your hand. Now, we're going to get a trigger off of Risen Reef whenever we evoke Fury. So we can evoke, lose the card from our hand for the exile a red card, then get one off of Risen Reef. So we're kind of cycling through our deck with Fury. Or even Solitude. So either one of these are going to enter the battlefield as elementals and trigger Risen Reef. That's where it has the most power. And then Solitude will exile a creature they control, a target creature, and they gain life equal to its power. So both Fury and Solitude both give us some immense value with Risen Reef, because every time we evoke them into play, we're going to get value off of Risen Reef. Then we have another card. One of our few non-creatures is Ephemerate. Ephemerate, if you're unfamiliar with this combo, so Fury's sacrifice, whenever it's triggered a sacrifice mechanic. Whenever it enters the battlefield, if evoke cost was paid, sacrifice is permanent. Well, in response to sacrificing that permanent, if we go and Ephemerate our Fury or our Solitude, now that Fury or Solitude is a regular copy that was not evoked into play. It has been returned to play with Ephemerate, and it's just in play now. So whenever we get an Ephemerated Fury, or an ephemerate solitude, whenever they've left the battlefield and come back, that sack trigger fizzles. It goes away because it no longer sees the evoked copy of Fury or Solitude. So we're going to get value out of it. And then Ephemerate is going to trigger again with its rebound. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you get to cast Ephemerate again, target something else. Maybe you want to target Risen Reef, maybe you want to target Solitude, or Omnath, or anything you want to target with it. Ephemerate is just so good because we have so many enter the battlefield mechanics. Anyway, so the next non-creature spell we have in the deck is Aether Vial. Aether Vial is a 1-drop, 1 generic artifact. It says at the beginning of your upkeep, you may put a charge counter on Aether Vial. Tap. You may put a creature card with converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Aether Vial from your hand into play. So this is going to be really good. I think where it's going to want to sit most of the time is probably going to be our 3 costs. We've got Lightning Skelemental, we've got Risen Reef, and we've got Incandescent Soul Stoke. So if we're most likely to probably rip these off the top, we have 9 copies of 3-drops, and we have, it looks like 8 copies of 2-drops. So you're not going to be hurt by leaving it on 2 until you find a 3-drop. But once you get to that 3-drop, you're kind of stuck there. If you have to go up to a 4-drop to get your Omnaths in play, that's usually going to be okay. It's just now your Aether Vial is only going to be able to be used for your Omnaths. So just be aware that as you tick it up, you have to be really cautious about getting up to that 4 counters on it. Next up, let's talk about the mana base really quick. This is pretty straightforward for most modern tribal decks. So we've got 4 copies of Cavern of Souls. It enters battlefield, choose creature type, tap, add a colorless. So we can cast our Aether Vial off of it. And it says tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana, only cast a creature spell of the chosen type, and that spell can't be countered. So it's really, really good against Counterspell. We've just got Counterspell in the format. Next, we have a copy of Forest. We have a copy of Plains. We do not have a copy of a mountain, like a plain mountain, it looks like. Then we have some, what do you call it? We have Primal Beyond, which is our elemental specific tap for any color. Primal Beyond says enters battlefield, you may reveal an elemental card from your hand. If you don't, Primal Beyond becomes into play tapped. So if we have an elemental in hand, we reveal it, we get it to come and play untapped. It says tap, add a colorless mana to your mana pool, or tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Spend this mana, only play elemental spells or activate elemental abilities. It's just pure gasoline. Reflecting Pool can tap for any mana that another land could produce. So if we have Primal Beyond, it'll tap for any color. Or if we have only Hallowed Fountain, it'll tap for a blue and a white. That kind of idea. Sacred Foundry can be found with our fetches, and so can Hallowed Fountain. This is a plain island. Sacred Foundry is a plains mountain. Then we have Sunbaked Canyon to draw us cards whenever we start flooding out. This is a painful land that can draw us cards, or draw us a card whenever we've started to flood out. Then we've got a copy of Temple Garden, another shock land to be able to round out our mana base. We have only 4 copies of fetch lands with Windswept Heath. Tap, pay 1 life, sacrifice pay 1 life, sacrifice Windswept Heath. Search your library for a forest or a plains card and put it on the battlefield. Shuffle your library. So this will get Temple Garden, Sacred Foundry, Hallowed Fountain, and our forests and plains from our library and put them into play. You tired? I'm tired. Okay, next up we have our sideboard. Really quickly, let's look at this. The video is getting a little bit long. Okay, first up we have Healer of the Glade. It's a 1 green 1/2 elemental, 1 Healer of the Glade. Enters battlefield, gain 3 life. Okay, so we've got those blitz decks, we've got those burn decks. We just need to gain extra life and put some blockers out there. This is really good. We've got 2 copies of Endurance to deal with Dredge, deal with those graveyard center decks. It says it's a flash reach 3/4 for 3. When Endurance enters the battlefield, up to 1 target player puts all the cards from their graveyard on the bottom of their library in a random order. It can evoke for an exile a green card from your hand. So good, so powerful. I want some copies of this card, but it's $33 a piece, so it's a little bit expensive. Next up, we have Fulminator Mage. It's another elemental. We can reanimate it if we get our Thunderkin Awakener to be a little bit bigger. It says hybrid black red, and 1 generic. It says 2/2, sacrifice Fulminator Mage, destroy target non-basic land. Really good against Tron. Really good. Actually, it's really good against a lot of decks that have what I would call utility lands. It's also just good in general against decks that have creature-based lands, land creatures. Then we also have Realm Walker. This, I believe, Realm Walker's in here for the control matchup. So if you're getting a lot of, well, it's more like the spot removal matchup, not the control matchup. So with the spot removal matchup, now you can get some value off of Realm Walker. It also becomes kind of a lightning rod for that removal. But it says whenever it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. You may look at the top card of your library. Anytime you may cast creature spells of the chosen type from the top of your library. You just choose elementals. You go through here and you can find a bunch of value out of Realm Walker. All right, Foundation Breaker. This one is a new one out of Modern Horizons 2. Also has Evoke on it. It's a 1 green, 3 generic. When a Foundation Breaker enters the battlefield, you may destroy a target artifact or enchantment. It's really useful anytime you're going to be coming into contact with people with problematic enchantments and artifacts. This is really good. And there is the evoke cost on there too. You can cast it as a 4-drop 2/2, which is not great value, or you can just evoke it into play, which is going to be fine with our Risen Reefs and our basically our Risen Reefs. It's where it plays best with. Now, also be aware that the Lantern control has been coming back, and I'm not a fan. All right, last on our next on our list is Subtlety. It says 4-drop flash flying 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, choose a 1 target creature spell or planeswalker spell. Its owner puts it onto the top or bottom of their library. So this has to be on the stack. It cannot be in play. Yep. So whenever they're casting something, we can put it in timeout for long enough for us to beat them to death. This is really, really good against things like Ugin. Ugin will just crush us. If we can just time warp it for a turn or two, then we're going to be able to swing back and crack them and win. Yeah, it's just really good. And people are finding out that with Subtlety is doing a lot more work in the format because that tempo is such a huge swing, because they're going to basically die with it and die with their creature in exile. Subtlety's really working well. Then we have a Yashran Implacable Earth. This is a 4-drop 4/4, 1 green, white, and 2 generic. When it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic forest card and a basic plains card. Reveal those cards, put them onto your hand, shuffle your library. Players can't pay life or sacrifice 9-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. This is in here for the food decks. This is in here for that reason alone, because it says cannot sacrifice non-land permanents to cast spells or activate abilities. All the food, all the treasure, all of the clues, all of them require a sacrifice to activate. This shuts them all off. It's really good. Anyway, guys, this is the Elementals How Do You Play guide. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. I'll see you next time. Deuces!